Okay, hello. Welcome, Reiki Cafe community, to another coffee conversation. I am so excited because I actually have Christine with me this week.
I know, I'm here, I'm alive, I'm doing the things, I'm excited to be here. And I'm really excited about today's coffee conversation. It's been one that I wanted to do all of June, and we're finally getting it in because this is Pride Month, and I really wanted to speak to the topic of inclusivity. So this is something I'm really passionate about, and I feel like we have evidence of in our Reiki Cafe community of being inclusive. And I also just want to make that value be fully known in the Reiki community fully. Like if you're feeling excluded anywhere, you're going to find a home here. So thank you all for coming to this coffee conversation. It is on the topic of inclusivity, and I'm super excited to have this conversation with Izzy. So is there anything that we need to cover before we kind of dive in?
I think first thing is making it split screen so people can see both of us at once.
Oh, yes.
Let's see, we've got people coming in, which is so exciting. I would love to know from everybody in the chat, not only where you're watching from, but also how you experience diversity and inclusivity in the Reiki community, right? This is a coffee conversation, so we really want to have that conversation piece with you all of what does diversity and inclusivity mean for you, especially in the context of the Reiki community. But like Christine said, I'm so excited to be having this conversation because I think, if you read the event description or the podcast description, it's very much when we come into this world, we have these human suits, we have this human aspect of ourselves, and maybe our soul gets to choose which human we come into, but a lot of times it can feel like we're just kind of born into these circumstances with different races and socioeconomic status and genders and sexual preferences and Reiki lineages and however you think of that term diversity and inclusivity. And it can be an interesting path to walk of kind of playing the cards that you've been dealt, but also finding spaces in which those cards are fully accepted and welcomed. And that's something that we really, really hope to create here in the community, is this space where anyone and everyone is welcome, regardless of your background or your history or whatever it might be. And so that's something that we really hope that everybody can feel and experience when they're engaging with the community.
It's very much like honoring your walk of life, wherever that is, and making sure that everyone has equal access as much as possible to this information. I really feel like everyone in the world needs to have the Reiki level 1. Like, it is an excellent tool in the toolbox. And who am I to judge someone for their skin color or their sexual orientation or whatever it may be? And so we really try to create as inclusive a space as possible. And I was thinking about this the other night and going, what really put me on this path of being open and aware? And I was born and raised in Portland, Oregon, which was a very open and aware community and town. I went to a church with 26 languages being spoken, and all of that was great. But I really feel like there was a turning point in my own personal development when I took a training called Our Whole Lives Sexuality Education, because I became a facilitator in this basically sex ed class. So I spent many years ago, like 10 years ago, I was practicing as a midwife, and I was like, I have this opportunity to take this sex ed training to become a facilitator. Should I do it? And my midwife mentor was like, yes, that is absolutely going to help you in the long run. And, the mentor I was working with was a lesbian, I've always been around. I feel like I attract people even though I live in a very white state of Montana, I tend to be around as much diversity as possible. And so I took this training on sexuality training, and it was developed by the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship and the United Church of Christ, which are two very liberal organizations, religious organizations. And because they had so many complaints about the school system that they wanted to come up with something that was scientific evidence, that would teach informed consent, that would teach gender equality, and just let it be a spectrum of gender and everything else. And so I took these trainings for years. And so I'm actually certified facilitator to teach sex ed to kindergarten through high school. So most people don't know that about me, but it really was that it helped me have these difficult conversations with whatever age you're at, of going, how can we love ourselves just the way they are? And I think that was the key. Like, it didn't matter if you had a different sexual orientation, or it didn't matter if you had, you didn't fit the quote unquote, the norm, you didn't fit the box. It was like, it always came back to your voice is respected and you're worthy of your own path and to be noticed and lovable and accepted. And it's just like, I think that really was when I started becoming more and more aware and going, how can I not only attract and create spaces that have this understanding that all are welcome here, as well as how can I also continue my own education to continue to understand different populations, minorities. And that's been a big goal of mine, right?
Yeah, and I think it's so important when we're having conversations like these to really be able to look back and see like what has been your own personal history with minorities and people whose life experiences are different than yours. And so for me, I grew up in a very Christian household, and obviously Christianity has some very strict opinions about a lot of these topics. And I remember distinctly the first time that kind of started to shift, because my brother is a member of the LGBTQIA plus community, and growing up in a Christian household, you can imagine that created a lot of really interesting conversations. And I remember watching the interactions between him and especially my mom of these two different ways of thinking and these two different belief systems interacting and at a lot of times colliding, and having at that point in time this kind of Reiki perspective of being able to step back and realize that these are just two people talking to each other. These are just two souls interacting, and at some point we've decided that there's a barrier there that's not actually there. Right. And I think this is something that I've had a lot of conversations with in my past with people who are of different races or different ethnicities, of this idea that I think a lot of bring forward of being colorblind, right, or blind to the differences. And I do just want to put forward that as I'm saying this, I am fully aware that I'm speaking as a straight white woman. Like, I am 100% aware of this. And that's why we want to bring this into a conversation with the community, because for as much as Christine and I really make it an intention in our lives and in our practice to be diverse and to be inclusive, there's also a reality that we'll only ever be able to experience one side or one part of that spectrum. And that's why it's so important to have these conversations, to bring Reiki into spaces that are different than our own, because yes, we naturally, kind of gravitate toward people who are similar to us, but also the Reiki community has the capacity to hold space for everyone. And so, when we're talking about this idea of race and gender and sexual orientation and all of this, it really becomes this thought of, to me, I feel like when we bring in these concepts of being colorblind or of not seeing the differences, quote unquote, that we're missing the point, because I think it's in these differences that we're able to be everything we're meant to be, right? Our souls chose to come into this body, this lifetime, these circumstances for a reason. And if we pretend that those differences or those unique points of our being don't exist, then we're kind of shutting down these unique points of experience and of our own characteristics and of those around us. And so I think when I think about inclusivity, I really think about this idea of, can we hold space for the person next to us in the entirety of their being, no matter what that is? whether it's a traumatic past, like we talk about a lot on here, or if it's a different socioeconomic background or a different Reiki lineage than ours, or whatever that different past might be, can we hold space for the entirety of that person's being and understand that at the core level, at the core truth of us, we are all the same, right? That's the beauty of Reiki energy, is that it teaches us that we are all one at the end of the day. We come from this one universal, loving, pure energy. And that energy has chosen to manifest in human form in different ways. And so can we honor this understanding that at the core of us, we are all one, and on the human level, we are all different. And that's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
And so we have this space where we get to walk in honoring everyone's unique experiences, and also holding space for understanding, yes, we are all one, and we don't want to spiritually bypass, right? Because that is a snowball effect that I see oftentimes in not just the Reiki community, but like the spiritual community at large. And you hear us speak about this every quarter or so, going, remember, we're here to honor someone's experience, not to belittle them, not to minimize, not to go, it's all because of this divine thing happening. And like, there's part of that that's true. And then there's another part, like, racism is systemic, like it's built into our systems as a nation, as the world. And so it's just also having like wanting to go and be able to see like all angles as much as possible. And this is why we need to have conversations. We need to have contribution from our community who are of the minority, because we need to hear those voices. We need to create space where those voices can be heard and honored and not belittled and marginalized, right? Like made smaller. And I think that's really important. The Reiki community itself is a very white space, and we have this layer of white privilege. And I am one of those practitioners that get really curious of why is that? And just asking the question, like, why is that? Why aren't there more diversity within our own community? And how can we make that so? How can we, like, on our website and our brochures and our things that we put, does it include diversity in it? Like, are we and you even go to Canva and you put in Reiki to get those images and they're all showing up as white people. And I'm like, can we have a little bit of brown people like at all? Like, this is so hard. And we need to be conscious of it, because people who say yes to Reiki, if we want to create a more diverse community, we need to show that it is for everyone. So what are we putting out into the world that's letting them say, yeah, look, that could be me lying on that Reiki table, receiving Reiki and taking that class. Like, and I think that's really important. And we do have a lot of people of, all different kinds of sexual orientations and backgrounds, and going, I know that. Like, they come to me and talk to me personally, but I'm like, we need someone who can be the leader for the trans community for Reiki. We need a leader who can be the, bisexual or the non-binary, or just like, we need people to believe in themselves and love themselves enough to know that their voice is worthy, and a space will be made for them to speak from that angle, because that's ideally what I think is going to help broaden and open, so we aren't just whitewashed, and that there are different voices and spaces within the Reiki community, but we need people to feel accepted and honored so that they can take these leadership roles.
Right. And I think that's the key right there, is like I was saying a moment ago, there's only so much that Christine and I can do, right? There's only so much that Christine and I can do as straight white women in the community to promote this diversity and to promote this inclusivity, right? Our role in this conversation and in this progression towards a more diverse space is one of inclusivity, right? We don't ourselves have a lot to offer in terms of diversity, because Christine and I are not diverse people. for what the Reiki community is currently targeted towards. And so our role is to bring in that space of inclusivity, of showing people of diverse backgrounds and missions and heritages and all of these things that they are accepted, that they are worthy, that they are lovable, and that they are able to step forward and share their voice, because that is the part that we can't fulfill, right? We can support diversity and we can claim its benefits and all of these things for what Reiki has to offer for a more diverse community. But at the end of the day, it's those people who are of a different race or who are of a different ethnicity or sexual orientation or whatever it might be that have to step up and do that part of sharing their voice. And so it becomes kind of this back and forth of, can we in Reiki Cafe community or in the Reiki community at large, can we create a space in which those people who are diverse have that feeling of safety and empowerment to be able to stand up and share their voice? And so it becomes this understanding that for each and every one of us, there will be some sort of limitation on what we can offer for this conversation. But if we all come together and share our voices and our gifts and our circumstances, that conversation will be well-rounded and holistic and powerful. But we all have to step in and do our parts. And so one of the things that I think is so important in this conversation is really looking at what are our own beliefs about all of this, right? When I was in college, I studied psychology and I took this social psychology class that was absolutely fascinating. And it was all about how we interact with people. And there was an entire module this whole month where we studied our inherent biases and prejudices that we have, because no matter how aware we try and be, we all have them, right? It's not a bad thing unless we act on them in a negative way, but we all have these. And so that first step, like we always say to healing, is awareness. And so really getting curious. There are even tests online that you can take that will show you what your unconscious biases are. And I think having those conversations and having the humility to be able to look at yourself and say, yeah, you know what, this is a weak point. And what can I do to open up those spaces within me that are a little more closed off? What can I do to open up to experiences that help me understand those places where I myself don't go? And I think this is something that Christine and I talk about all the time, is stepping out of the box, right? And this is one of those things where Christine's talking about, why isn't the Reiki communities more diverse? And I think about this all the time because as Reiki practitioners, we have already kind of outed ourselves as the quote unquote weirdos of our communities, right? Like we've already kind of stepped out of traditional society, right? We're already off the beaten path. And so why is it not just the next natural step that this community is diverse and does hold space for everyone? Because we've already broken so many barriers simply by being willing to stand up and call ourselves Reiki practitioners. And so I think it becomes this question of, can we all do that self-work? Can we all do that self-understanding to see where are we putting up those little barriers that aren't necessarily supposed to be there? And what work can we do in ourselves to help take those down while creating a space and cultivating an environment in which those people who do have the capacity and the ability to make changes, to share their voice and to bring more diversity into the community, a place where they feel safe enough to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the self-reflection that you're offering, Izzy, that how can we discover if we are holding these biases? And I think one of the ways is start to look at things that are going to speak back to you. What does your algorithm look like when you open up your reels? Is it all of someone of one color? Who's your clientele? Is it all white women? Like, where are you hoping to create space, and are you speaking to that? Right. So one of the things that we can self-reflect is like, who are your mentors? Is there diversity in your mentors? Is there diversity in your clients? Is there diversity in your algorithm for just like who you're being spoken to, And so, I was in a coaching program back in 2020, and this was one of the concepts of being trauma informed. We need to understand inclusivity as well. And she was like, do you have all of these things? I'm like, yeah, my mentor is multiracial and go by they, them, and all of like And I was like, yes. And I could go through the list of all of the different clients. I had a Chilean native, and I had an African American, and I had, like the diversity was showing up for me. But because of protecting people's privacy, you might not necessarily see it. So, and that's where I'm like, it's an invitation. I'm inviting you who are the listeners to go, you're in a safe space to communicate with us on Reiki Cafe Community. We're going to honor your voice inside that space. So if you need a safe space to start with, that's going to honor if you are trans, if you're honoring that you're non-binary, if you're honoring of your brown skin, you can find that space in Reiki Cafe University. And if there are negative comments thrown, we will take them down. We want to be able to have a place where everyone feels safe to do their healing work. And that is our Reiki Cafe community. And most of that conversations are being had on the Facebook community. So if you haven't joined Reiki Cafe community on Facebook, like, hello, welcome, come on, join us over there. And also like practice there, practice your voice in that safe container. So as you walk into that leadership role, so that you can start doing your own lives and start developing your own businesses, going, I speak for the men and I want men clients, and I am a masculine person who wants that. Or I am the trans person, I want to speak to other trans people on their healing journeys, and Reiki is a possibility to help on that journey. We want to see not just Izzy and I and, Chantel and now Cassandra being the leaders. Like, we also want to see room and development for the whole spiritual space to become more inclusive. And the way we can do that now is starting here.
Yeah. And I think it really is so important, like Christine was just saying, that ability to self-reflect here, because we're all going to be limited in what our life experience has allowed us to understand about other people's life experience, no matter how much compassion we have, or no matter how much of an empath we have, right? I think there's something so powerful, again, knowing that I'm saying this as a straight white woman who has inherent limits on what I can understand about other people's experience, that it is up to us to not only be sharing this with our words, but also to be open to listening to other people, listening to what was your experience like? What has life taught you? What has being in this diverse space, how has it impacted you? What has it taught you? What lessons has it brought, and what hardships has it brought with it, right? I think there's so much to learn when we can understand that no matter how much we try and be open and accepting, there's always going to be something that we're missing, not because we're consciously trying to, not because we are bad people, right? But because that's just how our brains work. That's just how being human is. It's so incredibly hard to be able to understand everybody's experiences, and it's impossible to live everybody else's experiences, right? And so having this space where you can be open with yourself, of understanding where you are maybe a little more closed off or a little lacking in that understanding, or those conversations that can bring to light these different experiences that people have. And also holding space for other people to be able to share those stories, so that we can understand more and we can grow in this diversity more. Because as we do that, that's really when Reiki shines, because that's when I think about Reiki and inclusivity and all of these things, it's really this idea of going back to the flow of energy, right? Are we allowing that energy to flow freely through the community? Or do we have blocks in place? Do we have blocks when things like race come into the conversation? Do we have blocks when things like sexual orientation come into the conversation? Do we have blocks when things like your Reiki lineage or your background come in, right? Where are these places where the conversation and the flow of Reiki in the community as a whole is being stopped or stuttered? And I think it's again one of those things of, we each and every one of us have the ability and have the opportunity to contribute to the opening up of those channels in our community, knowing that we each have different skills and different abilities and different opportunities to open that in specific ways. And so can we hold space in ourselves to allow that energy to flow through, while also creating spaces in the community for other people to open up for that flow as well.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. You know, I'm reminded when I first opened Reiki Cafe University and I developed my logo, and it was just this big bright rainbow with that said Reiki Cafe under it. And people were like, whoa, you can't use a rainbow because that belongs to the LGBTQ plus community. And I was like, and like, and I don't care if people are confusing me with being, open. And I can shine my rainbow and shine that flag and be okay with that community coming into this space. But there was definitely some people that were like, whoa, you don't want to do that because you might get those type of people. And I'm like, yeah, let's bring them in. Let's bring them on. Like, they need love too. And I just, and that's why we still have our original logo. We haven't updated it because I like it. I like the rainbow. I do. And, originally, I was trying to emphasize, people's transitions in the logo. Like, we're coming out of the gray skies and welcoming in the light, and we get the rainbow. That's where the mix happens. We're also getting the colors, this color spectrum of the chakras in the rainbow. And yeah, I'm totally okay to be shining the rainbow flag as well.
Yeah. And I think, and again, it comes back to this understanding that no matter what we say in this conversation, at some point, we're going to say something wrong. At some point, we're going to miss the point. We're going to unintentionally offend, right? This is always going to happen in these conversations. Again, not because we're not trying to be open and understanding, but just because these conversations are inherently difficult to have, right? And that's why we're having them, because the more we can step into that space where we make them conversations and not just one person telling someone else what to think and feel, when they can actually be conversations, that's when it can ease, because we can start to have this back and forth of, what am I missing? What are you missing? How can we help each other to understand? Because in that's really how Reiki is going to change the world, right? I mean, if you think about these conversations that you have with clients who come in, who are brand new to Reiki, there's this kind of back and forth of, we have to shift your mindset away from what's accepted in the mainstream society of science and energy and all of this, right? We have to shift before Reiki can come into your life. And I think it comes back to this idea every single time of these conversations that are difficult, these conversations that are so heavy right now, can be made lighter if we all stand up in openness, willing to accept and understand that we are all going to have places that we miss. Sometimes we're all going to say something wrong sometimes, and it's not because we're trying to, but it's because we are opening space to have these conversations so that they don't have to be as difficult, so that instead of feeling heavy, they can feel light, and they can bring that shift into the collective mindset so that this diversity can become something that's so innate that it's not even something where we're like, we need more diversity. It becomes, look at how diverse our community is, right? Because that's the goal, is that these conversations aren't always these conversations. The goal is that these conversations are just part of the foundation of our community, that they are just so natural to have this diversity, to hear these different voices, to have these different people showing up for, the smaller versions of them, right? And I think there's so many different ways that we can talk about this, but one of my favorite that Christine brought up earlier is, when you were growing up, I'm sure everybody had some kind of movie character, storybook, something like who embodied them, right? For me, it was Ariel growing up, because she was the only little princess who had red hair. And I was like, oh my gosh, Ariel and her red hair. And I think we all have that person who shows us what's possible for people, quote unquote, like us, right? And right now, the Reiki Cafe community has many of those, but the Reiki community as a whole doesn't have a lot of people who younger practitioners, younger enthusiasts can look up to and say, that's what's possible for people, quote unquote, like me. And we need more of those people, right? And so that's really our goal with these conversations, is, can we bring this topic to light Can we understand and accept that there are gaps that we're not going to be able to fill? And can we hold space for the people who will be able to fill them?
Yes, yes. And so I think that's it. Like you nailed it. And I would love to support the people who are like, they know they want to be the leader. They know that they want to hold that space, and that they also can come to a place, perhaps in the Reiki Cafe community, where they're seen as valid, that they are loved for who they are, and that they know within themselves that they're worthy to take this leadership role, that they're worthy and valued to have a voice. And how can we embrace them and respect them and show them that, yes, please, here, take this platform, speak to this. That's fantastic. And so I just really, my vision, my dream, my Reiki dream is that we do have a space for everyone, a space for everyone. Yes, the cis white gender male, as well as, and really like going to a Reiki retreat, not being the only one who's the minority. Like, where are, for those people, that they can look around and see brown faces and multi, like the rainbow t-shirts, and just like all of it. And so I don't think Reiki needs to be a white privilege. I think that's what it comes down to. Like, I don't want that reality. And I want it to be where everyone can have Reiki in their life, period. All over, everywhere. That is my dream. I want not only Reiki to be a household word, but I want everyone to have access. I do. And how can we support that? How can we make it more accessible for those who are of lower economic status and those of different minority groups, right? And so, I've had some places and spaces where I let people know who can afford a higher price go, yeah, when you pay at this level, I can allow the person who is at this level come in. And so I still need those people who can pay the top dollar for their sessions and their packages, because then I can offer scholarships to those who are of the minority who still wants to walk in this journey.
Yeah. And it's something we've touched on a little bit as well, is also this idea of the different Reiki backgrounds that there are, right? With Holy Fire and Karuna and Rainbow Reiki and now Creative Reiki that we offer through the university, and all of these different Reiki backgrounds, there can be a lot of contention between the different strands of Reiki, which I find fascinating. But that's something that we also want to emphasize at Reiki Cafe University, is that to us, it doesn't matter. Reiki is Reiki. And no matter how it came to your life, no matter how it presents in your life, and no matter what your Reiki background is, you are welcome here. This is not a space where you can only be Usui Reiki Ryoho trained and that's it, right? That is what we teach at the university, but that doesn't mean that that's the only background that we're open to. We want, again, this to be a conversation where we can share our own experiences and find healing and solidarity in the experiences of others. And that comes through having a range of different experiences, a range of different life backgrounds that we can share and learn from as a whole.
Yeah, totally. And I think, I've had a lot of questions come up recently around Reiki associations. And I'm like, well, we don't have standards in the United States because there isn't a United States association. There's one in Canada, there's one in the UK. They have these associations with certain standards of practice, and we don't have that here. And like, one of my long-term goals is to create a Reiki association for the US. But in that, I want to see the diversity there. Like, so yeah, it might be a 10-year goal, 10-year out goal. Like, I know that I don't have the capacity to make it happen now, like having each state have their own association and then bring it to a yearly conference with their leadership from that state. Like, yeah, that's the vision. And I if I could just duplicate myself and Izzy, like, right, I could do a lot of things, but at the same time, I would love to see others who with the same passion to say, oh, we need standards and we need inclusivity and we need the diversity and we need a space to speak. So just one organization doesn't always take the spotlight. Like one lineage shouldn't be taking the spotlights and saying my Reiki is better than your Reiki, because that right there cannot be Reiki. It's universal energy. Like that doesn't make sense. So I would love to see more people in the space ready to have their Reiki circles and Reiki shares and teach and educate. And that's why ReikiCafe University, we don't have that competition mindset. We need more. We need more teachers in the world. We need more people who can speak up and stand out and say yes to your divine calling, whatever that may be. So if that is you, what does that look like? How can you shine your light in the most powerful way, knowing that you're worthy to take that role? What does that look like?
Yeah. And I think that at the end of the day is what this conversation comes down to, is knowing that each and every one of us has a place and a space where we are meant to shine a light, where we are meant to make an impact. And there's not a single one of us who can make an impact in all of the areas and in all of the places, right? And so we can do the most, we can make the most impact and the most change and create, that change that you wish to see in the world by being exactly where we are meant to be, honoring the tools and the gifts that we have been given in our unique experience and background, and finding what's our passion, what place and space are we meant to be in to create changes, to make those shifts, right? And so if you are one of the members of the diverse community and you know that you're meant to be a leader, that's you. We want to give you that space to do it. If you're one of those members of a more diverse community who wants to make up the community that allows diversity to spread, go do it. If you are someone like Christine and I, who know that there are limits to what we can do, but we can create a space in which those actions and those changes can happen, then we're going to do that. Because if we can, each and every one of us, stand up and uphold what spirit is leading us to, what we are meant to be doing in this lifetime, and shining, not trying to shine in every single area, but really truly understanding that we shine brightest when we allow ourselves to just be where we're meant to be and do what we were meant to do, that's when we're going to have the most impact. And so all of this comes back to, can we have, no matter who we are, no matter where we are, no matter where we've been, can we sit down, have a moment of self-reflection and look at what's holding me back? Where are my limitations? What conversations can I have and hold space for to allow those limitations to be expanded? And what changes can I create with my unique tools, talents, background, traits, etc., so that I am contributing to this dream, this vision that I have for what I want the Reiki community to be?
Yes. So all in all, we're allies. And we would love for all of it, for you just to know who you are, shine your light, and go out into the world and shine that light to others. And so creating spaces where you're offering education, creating spaces where you're creating that space where it's inclusive for anyone to come, and sending the invitation to those communities. How can you today look at your own practice, reflect on your practice, and going, how can I invite more diversity into my space?
Right. And then again, it comes down to, if you are a member of these diverse communities, if you are someone that this webinar is speaking to, and you have ideas for how we can hold space better, for how we can improve, for how we can create the space for you to share your voice, let us know, right? Because again, like we have said through this whole webinar, there's going to be places that we don't quite see. And so we want you to help us see, how can we support you? How can we be even more outspoken, even more obvious in our support of you, and even more helpful in our support, so that you have the space and the safety to understand that you are worthy, you are seen, and that you can share your voice. So if there's something you can think of that we could do, that we could change, a conversation we could have, anything like that, let us know, because that's part of being an ally, like we've been saying, is being open and listening to what needs to happen, what needs to be changed, and where we can grow.
Right. So as we close out our month on chakra and welcome in a new month of intuition development, we love to fully listen and fully hear what your offerings are, how you would like us to see, I'm just thinking third eye and intuition. It's like so much of it is perception. How can we perceive a new way of being, a new way of inclusivity? And so thank you so much for coming to this conversation. Be willing to listen, to be willing to show up and to evaluate where you're at and how you can change or honor where you are, depending on who you are, what that conversation looks like for you. And so just a few announcements I'd love to make as well is that we've got some really amazing things coming up. If you are interested in your Reiki level 1, if you're interested in your Reiki level 2, we're doing those online in July. And then we are moving into a beautiful season where we're going to be offering our shamanic Reiki practitioner training again, so that you can connect with your guides. You can develop a spirit team, and that intuition will really wake up. So know that we have got some really amazing things down the pike, and we'd love for you to give us a like, give us a follow on all of the platforms. We need your reviews, we need your shares, because we need to share this with the world. And so you supporting Reiki Cafe in whatever way you can, whether that's purchasing a course or taking a class or sharing a podcast, it all supports us so much. So I just want to say thank you for supporting us, doing that, and showing up. So I cannot wait to see you for our next round of coffee conversations and events that we have totally scheduled out for July.
Yes. So all of those links, if you're watching on YouTube, all of those links I just put in the comments for our events page, our shamanic Reiki practitioner training, and our Reiki level 1 and 2. But like Christine said, we would be so incredibly grateful if you like, follow, subscribe, all of the things, not because we want those numbers to go up, right? That's not why we're asking, but because the more that you follow us, the more you subscribe, the more you like, the more these platforms are going to boost us and our message to the world, to other Reiki practitioners. And through those conversations, through that spread of all of this, that's how we're going to be able to make an impact. And that's how you can help us to make that impact. So if you haven't already, we would be so appreciative if you did those things. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, if you want to hop on a call with us, if you have thoughts after today's chat and you want to hop on a call, let us know. Send us an email, a message, join the Facebook group, hop on a call, all of the things. We really want to continue this conversation, and we really want to support you, however that looks like for you. So know that we are here and open and available, and we are so incredibly grateful for each and every one of you.
Beautiful. Thank you all so much for coming, and we can't wait to see you next.